It gets better and better for the Super Kings. It almost seemed like an inevitable result. Sunrisers Hyderabad never in it. It went on longer than we would have imagined, as Shaun Tait rightly put it on our halftime show on Visit Saudi presents ESPNcricinfo T20 timeout. But we do see CSK now join Lucknow and Rajasthan with 8 points, and that is a nice space to be, the top 3 of this year's IPL. Sanjay Manjrekar is here as well. As we look back at that game, comfortable, you would think, even though it's taken CSK till the penultimate over?
Yeah, very comfortable. There was no real time in the game when it looked like it was going to go any other way. You could, I think it went for a bit longer because of the conditions, because the wicket wasn't the easiest pitch to get in the rhythm with the bat. But I think Devon Conway, again, played really, really well. So.
At the back of another fine half-century. We keep remembering Devon Conway not only for these runs, but how he was a steal at an auction. It's just such a CSK signing, and it continues to reap rewards. Sanjay.
Absolutely, and we saw yesterday there were a couple of games were not high scoring and teams chasing, really struggling. So one of the tough things, I guess, for a lot of T20 batters is to bat in the third gear because the target is a small one, and we saw Devon Conway do that. Ruturaj Gaikwad as well actually was more sedate than Devon Conway. If not for that run out, they would have won with 3 overs to spare because the new batters came and struggled a bit. So this is what you want to see. You want to see, at this level, batters adjust their approach and their batting according to the needs of the team. And that was brilliant to see. And in the end, staying not out, that's another virtue of an exceptional batter. So very happy with what I saw there.
And we also now know the news that we're going to have 2 playoffs at Chennai. So that further incentivizes a successful CSK campaign. The point Sanjay makes, though, we saw a couple of games yesterday, and we are genuinely seeing the big hitters not quite understand how to assess conditions when they are challenging. The value of Conway just goes up because he's not just your long form player. He can easily play the other game too, but there's something about him, isn't it? Hard to bowl to?
Well, we know his international quality, and the fact that he can play spin is just a massive bonus coming to the IPL at a great steal, I suppose, in the auction. So, and the big hitter thing, exactly. If the conditions are difficult to come in as a hitter and finish games off fresh after losing a wicket, then even more valuable that he's hanging around and making big scores.
Yep. When we look at SRH, could they have done anything to make this 1-3-4 seem harder? It didn't look like spin was the weapon Aiden Markram resorted to early on.
Yes, it's a tough one to protect that score. But maybe Bhuvaneshwar Kumar just 1 over to begin with, because Bhuvaneshwar Kumar is not the Bhuvaneshwar Kumar of 5 years back. So yes, Marco Jansen, I can understand him going 3 overs with him. He's a South African as well. Markram would understand Jansen's ability, and he's been good, Jansen. So I can understand that happening. But maybe in hindsight, 2 overs. And Umran Malik a little earlier. Now that is where I was a little disappointed. He came in the 8th over when the match was almost gone. And this is where MS would have said, the target is a small one. Normally we get him in the 8th over, but today we need him to come in early because he's somebody who can get batters out while they're defending. So that was something they could have looked at. And also once you've got the impact substitute in, you gave him the opportunity to make an impact. They just held him back only because there was the left-hander batting. If that was the case, then he should not have been picked. So there were a lot of controllables that they didn't get right.
Do you sense this is going to be the biggest challenge for Aiden Markram, the IPL captain? How much faith he can put in spinners on days where spin clearly is the way to go? If anything, you should have seen how the first innings went, but we didn't even see Washington Sundar in the power play. That's where he's best used. Yeah,
the moment 6 overs were over, Washington Sundar came in. Markandey, is a find for them. Even here today, he got a wicket. But yeah, and you can see on the field as well, he's not somebody who looks to be in charge, enjoying the leadership role. So yes, whatever little I've seen of Markram, you're quite right. As a young South African international to come into the IPL and Indian conditions and take all the calls which are going to be so different from the call that you make elsewhere in the world, it's not going to be easy.
Also not going to be easy for a Sunrisers team, Teddy, which now sees themselves second from bottom. The net run rate isn't great. They won 2 out of 6. And in spite of having some exciting international batters, it doesn't quite seem like this team has figured its best 11 out.
Yeah, just talking now the last 2 minutes. Strange, I suppose, bowling configuration a little bit. And I see them all standing around MS at the end of the match here, and it's probably not a bad thing to do, actually get some advice, because he's doing basically the opposite of what Sunrise are doing right now. He seems to have it all, all under his control. Sunrisers, even with the bat, they didn't assess the conditions very well, it looked like. And with the ball, it was the same sort of thing. It was almost like they went in with a plan, and no matter what, they weren't going to change it because of the conditions. That's what it looked like from afar, whereas Dhoni and CSK were the opposite.
Are you finding this potentially a key phase in the IPL for a team like Sunrisers, who, with another couple of results, could find themselves falling adrift of the top 4 or 5?
Leadership is very important in T20 cricket. In Test cricket, you can make mistakes. You can make some horrible mistakes on day 1, but you can come back on day 3 and 4. In T20 cricket, you pay the price immediately, and the results are there for everyone to see. So we'll have to keep our eyes open and see how Markram, responds. I mean, these are early days for him. But even in the batting order, to have somebody like himself and Klassen come before Mayank Agarwal, Mayank Agarwal all over the place. I think there is more to Mayank Agarwal than just make him a floater or a pawn to be used, whenever they want to make a certain kind of move. So those controllables, they'll have to do something about it. Batting wise, I think there is something there. Spin, Washington Sundar and Markande is not so bad. Natarajan going off the boil a little bit hurts them, but there's enough there. Captaincy.
I think on the Markram point, it's a good point that, because he's actually in South Africa, he's highly rated as a leader, always has been, and he's got the presence of a leader, and you can see he's going to make a good captain one day, I think. But that great point you made about in the IPL, so you come to the IPL as a young sort of captain. It's very different in South Africa, obviously, but it changes very quickly. So all of a sudden we're seeing games now, the pitches are slowing up. So IPL, over the course of 2 months, a lot of stuff changes, and you've got to make quick decisions on selections and conditions. So I think that's a good point. Take nothing away from his leadership, but just a great learning curve, I think this IPL is going to be for him.
All right. Well, he was not finding this as easy as the inaugural SA20, where Aiden Markram, of course, led the Eastern Cape Sunrisers to a maiden title. But you are concerned for Hyderabad. You're not at all concerned for Chennai. Let's just look back at this and how things just seem to be coming together for MS Dhoni and co. We spent a lot of time on our halftime show praising the bowling, but I think it's worth revisiting, Teddy, especially given that is you could say, the Achilles heel. The batting was firing, and we've had chats on our show about Mumbai where we think, Mumbai have to outbat their opponent every game. For CSK, it doesn't seem like that. Now suddenly the bowling looks organised. Even the young seamers are all putting their hands up.
And if you've got both sides firing, then and you're looking like a finals team all of a sudden. Well, not all of a sudden. We know they've got that in them, but I think at the start of the tournament, apart from probably you two sitting here, it wasn't as if they were the favourite team to. We thought, okay, Mumbai, Chennai, they're both struggling a little bit, but now that has completely changed.
Could I just allow for that moment to breathe? Because Sanjay, Manjrekar and me aren't very liked by the CSK loyals.
You're claiming,
and we were both
they like me now.
They like you. Okay, then I'm the only one.
You both claim
he
to
thinks
have
they
said
like
this
them
before the tournament. I didn't hear it, but anyway, I believe you.
But come back to it. On a serious note, they are looking a finals team.
They're 100% looking a finals team. They're bowling. There's some inexperience there, but we talked about Dhoni, the way he handles his young players. And at the moment, it seems like it's happening all again, and they're at their home ground. So
I picked, as I said in the show before the match began as well, I picked them as the likely Final Four, in this IPL, purely because of CSK's leadership. That was one thing. And the Dad's Army is not as much a Dad's Army. It's got a nice blend now. When things get really difficult, when the resources are so poor that even a great leader like Dhoni cannot make anything out of it, then he struggled, where they finished at the bottom. And that year before, they won the title next year. So they've tweaked that a little bit, and that's why I believe they're going to be in the Final Four. So a team now that is making you happy, because you want to see mature performances on the field and not just T20 caution to the wind kind of cricket. They're playing that kind, calculated cricket.
And perhaps it's a good time to again remind everyone that their two most expensive buys, Ben Stokes at 16.25 and Deepak Chahar, the auction before that at 14, are gone, and we are barely seeing their absence felt.
And that is again, I don't want to keep harping on Mahendra Singh Dhoni as the reason for everything that's going well with CSK. Is somebody like a Tushar Deshpande. Watch him run in and bowl tonight. I mean, the way he runs in, you can see he's a guy brimming with confidence. Pathirana is slowly getting there. Thikshana has got a wicket today. He's looking a little better. So those guys are fine. Jadeja has, I don't think I've seen him bowl better than he has done this season. Every match, he's bowling his 4 overs and getting wickets too. Moeen Ali will always be there to use the conditions if need be. So yes, they're looking pretty good.
If you look at, and the other thing is, if you look at the way we talk about the Devon Conway pick, and you compare that to Harry Brook, like Harry Brook at the moment is a super, like the next superstar of the game, and at the moment the quietly Devon Conway at his price is, they're getting great value. So
Harry Brook, they've got 100 out of him. Devon Conway, by the way, I don't like to talk about myself too much, but he was the one when you people have the shows before the IPL begins and you ask me all those mundane questions about who's going to be the highest scorer, surprise package.
It's the questions that are mundane in those videos. But carry on.
So I picked Devon Conway as a guy who will get the most runs, just late by a year.
No, oh, you mean your last year's prediction, Devon Conway, who got dropped in 2 games and then sort of didn't play. Great. But that was their fault, not yours. Otherwise, he would have been exactly. No, your point is very well taken. But, it takes us, I like the point you make, because we tend to mix up IPL seasons. And impressions are, CSK, Dad's Army, because Rahane has gone then got runs, and Uttapag won them a final a couple of years ago and whatnot. Now, we perhaps are talking about CSK in a different light of their scouting being solid. You look at Akash Singh, who's a replacement player for Mukesh Chaudhary, a Nagaland seamer who born in Rajasthan, who no one picked up at the auction, who now walks into this team. Tushar Deshpande, who's been around, who again finds some love over here. They don't even have Simarjeet Singh fit, who was a great find last year. Suddenly CSK have also aced the auction or the scouting game.
Deepak Chahar before that.
It's actually very interesting. There are few dads around in that team, but they've also got nice kids, talented kids, and there's a bit of guardianship happening there, and in the end, you're seeing those results. And sometimes you can get carried away by results and start raving about a team. But this doesn't look like a flash in the pan and suddenly CSK will disappear in the second half and not play as well. Everything looks a little solid. You don't see anything that is success based on something that is very fragile. And then got their bases covered. Ambati Raidu is somebody that they'll be hoping gets back his mojo, got out today as well. Apart from that, every player, batter that they've got, you're not thinking that you never know about tomorrow where this guy's going to be.
And it looks like an additional resource as well, Raidu. They can manage, they can tee off the odd game and they'd be fine. And even the absence of Dwayne Bravo is not being felt. We felt like that's the big one. And the overseas signings, even if we talk about Pathirana, they picked up Pretorius, who was good backup, but they've shown faith in Pathirana, who now 2 games in a row seems to have got it right. If they could have easily won this game with Pathirana going for 40 and not getting a wicket, but this is also a box that's slowly being ticked.
I think, and they look ahead very well. Like you said about Bravo, they sort of understand what their players are doing, when they're going to finish up, who we're bringing in next. So in any sport, you talk about the great teams or franchises, and they talk about depth, which Chennai have got clearly. The players that come in do the job as well, and the mix of youth and experience. They've got that, as you just said. So they're 2 big things. And then culture, I suppose, is the other one that gets thrown around a lot in sport, and they seem to have that down pat as well.
And also, I remember talking to MS in one of the matches after the game and talking about the death bowling, he has this challenge of the toughest overs being handled by, let's call them kids, because we're talking about Dad's Army and kids. Like, Tushar Deshpande, and in many ways Pathirana also, Hunger Gaker before that. But he said Dwayne Bravo is there talking to the kids. So there's some guardianship where Dwayne Bravo is passing on his exceptional, library of wisdom to the young kids. So that's also working well.
It's a great time if you're a CSK fan, when every other team seems to be trying to figure things out, wins, losses. They've now won 4 out of 5. It's looking good. That one loss was the Rajasthan Royals game, which was 1 hit away from getting over the line. So they played some tough games, they won some tough games. They've picked up points at the Wankhede and the Chinnaswamy, which is always handy, and we know what their home record boasts of, and they find themselves now in the top 3. The IPL also has this curious strategy of always giving us the playoff dates halfway through, and we now know that. So let me just get a quick word in that. If you're a CSK fan, or if you're a CSK player, forget the fans, but and you now know that if we will finish in the top 4, we play the qualifier or the eliminator at home. Sense that just charges you up a little bit more?
It's
huge advantage.
I'm not sure whether it's huge. What you've seen until now, and that was the point I forgot to make, is that their success also has not been dependent on the pitches. Pitches that are perfect for Chennai, and they sort of struggle away from home. I don't think they're struggling as much away from home. They'll win a lot of away games as well. So yes, playing at home with the crowd there, Dhoni knows that pitch well, where the pace is a little slower, suits him, but it's not going to be a game changer. That if they don't find themselves on their favorite venue in the big games, this season, especially with the kind of talent that they are around, it's not conditions dependent, their success.
Yeah, but you think now it's almost ominous that even forget where CSK finish, forget who faces them in an eliminator or playoff. They would go in regardless of their final position as favourites in a playoff game. I think that's motivation, isn't it?
At home, absolutely. 100% for sure. So, and that's got to be in the back of their mind now as well. I mean, if you continue to win your home games, every chance they're going to make the fall. And then obviously you get that home final and away you go. So, very interesting. Yeah.
All right. Well, they have a quick turnaround for their next one. They travel now to the Eden Gardens. They'd enjoy themselves. Then to Jaipur, to the Super Kings. Sunrisers, on the other hand, they need to figure out the answers to some questions. They've got Delhi at home, and Delhi who've now picked up a win. In fact, they've got back-to-back games against Delhi coming up in the next week.
Interesting case with Delhi. They won a game, but their confidence would be even more sort of low. Just a light-hearted comment in the end to get a laugh from Shaun.
Easy laugh.
You are a funny man.
Easy laugh.
Very well. Sanjay Manjrekar, what a delight it's been to have you back. And I hope to see plenty more of you here. Are you off to one of the games tomorrow?
Day after.
Day after. Very well. Then they can't wait to welcome you there. Shaun Tait, Monday, I see you next. Enjoy your weekend.
I'd love if this man came back.
Yeah, well,
Fantastic.
you're one of the few to say that.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Thank you to Shaun Tait and Sanjay Manjrekar. What a lovely discussion for a game that now is seriously giving us signs that CSK might be the team to beat this IPL, especially with the playoffs announced. They've done the job against the Sunrisers. They pick up the points. Join us tomorrow, double-header day again. It's a good one. Gujarat, Lucknow in Lucknow. That's a mouth-watering encounter. And Mumbai with 3 straight wins, ready to host Punjab Kings, who seem to have a few questions about themselves as well. So we'll see you for Visit Saudi Presents, ESPN Cricinfo T20 Timeout tomorrow at 3. Good night.